Okay, so this is a subtle transition line. You can see you have pines on this side and then pines on this side. I'm horrible at identifying trees, but all these trees right in here is definitely a different species, but he's running right between these two. I should say the deer are using it right between the two. I don't think, I can't see it on the camera, but right here you can tell underneath the snow there's a good little dent of a trail. So he's either going into the bedding or he's coming from the bedding, and I actually think he might be using both. There's an old rub right there. And this tree is marked up quite a bit, but that transition goes right back into here, which is the bedding, and we'll see here in a second why, or you'll see why I think he might be coming actually back this way too. Okay, so here's why I kind of think he might be using that transition line going in and out. Rub has been used multiple years, and I'm not going to walk down there just for the sake of the video, but down just through here there's another 2 rubs I can see going back that way, and that is headed right towards that pine rub that we saw right there. So going back into the bedding area, that last rub that we saw, this is the bedding area. Coming back out. Right over there's that one rub that's heading towards that transition line that heads back towards some fields, and it also comes back, which will allow him to come to this transition line, which I don't know if you can see, it's just all briars, and he can J-hook into his bed, which is right over here. From that transition line, you can glass into the private property, and you can see some rubs that actually basically leads you with your eye right around almost a J-hook into it. Okay, so obviously it's not being used right now, but you can tell this whole area is kind of, there's no brush, nothing popping up through. This is where he was bedded. So this is where we're going to assume that the first part of October he'll be on a western wind. What happened was, try to make this quick as possible without boring everybody, but what happened was I was getting pictures of this guy on North Facing Point. Basically from July 8th to the 12th he shows up, and this has happened the past 2 years. Trying to figure out where he was on a western wind. That's our predominant wind here. I assumed there's a point right over here, a nice little bench. That's where I kind of assumed where he was, over on the private. But I come in here to investigate this little overlooked area. I just completely overlooked it, duh. And when I walked up the transition line here last August, September, I had noticed large buck turds, several of them going up along this transition line. So I decided to put a camera basically right there. It's about 20 yards away. Put the camera there, let it go. October 10th, I was actually over somewhere else, and I needed a camera. Area started lighting up, so I'm like, you know what, let's pull this camera. MO in after work, 4 o'clock. MO in, walked up the transition line to the camera. Got 2 sticks up, and right from this bed, that particular deer stood up and bounded right away. Went right past me, 15 yards. He never got my wind. He got to the top of the knoll, kind of stood there, looked around like, what the heck just happened? Twitched his tail a couple times, and he walked off. So several days later, I came back with that same wind, and I set up on the opposite transition line. So sitting there, last 15 minutes of light, I could hear a deer get up from here, and basically he walked through here. Now, with all the leaves on, you cannot see over here whatsoever. Just above me in that little patch of trees, there's a little staging area up there. He got in there, stood there. He would not move. He didn't come out of there. He just stayed there until it got pitch black, and then I could hear his steps pick up, and he left. Last year we had a heavy acorn crop. This year it was actually just on this side. The year prior to that was on the opposite side. So my initial thought was to come in here and get set up in that staging area. Problem is, there's a doe bedding area underneath the pine just above it, and then even right now in the dead of winter, there's everything's pretty much dead. I can't get back in there without making a ton of noise. I would need a machete, which is illegal in public. So my next best option is to get closer, which is actually going to work out even better. So we're going to, right now, even though I don't really need it, we're going to use the orange hat. So basically what I would do with this is I will place this orange hat just above the bed. So normally what I would do is place the orange hat, I go back in the direction where I think my wind would be safe, just cutting it, just giving him the advantage, or the advantage, and then I'll start to work from there. As soon as I can't see the hat, that's when I'll start to look for trees and a possible setup. Okay, so again, there's the bed that I was just in. There's the hat. Now, this is going to play an important role, but this tree right here, that branch, is actually alive. So, I mean, you can see the leaves still hanging on it. When all that thing is full of leaves, you will not be able to see where I'm about to go. So, he's getting out of his bed, and he's coming up here. Right at my tracks. So, you can see how far we went. Can't really see the tree. That tree right there, was the tree the camera was in. Now, here's what I'm thinking. The problem is that camera has him coming on the opposite side of all this blowdown. So, I can't get to it. There's nothing I can do to get to it. The closest tree would put me right into his wind. But, from my observation set, he came right up here and into those trees before it got dark and left. So there's two ways he's leaving. And the third way is right down this transition line. And that's where there's some rubs leaving and there's rubs coming into it. So we are going to get set in this tree. Okay, so here we are, 3-6 high. I'm going to be set up on the back side of the tree. So I'll be peeking around the tree and climbing up the tree. I don't know if you can see. You can see the orange hat. So you can imagine when that's all green leaves, that tree behind it, he won't be able to see here. I'm just off. I'm probably to that tree. Let's see. The rangefinder to that tree is 36 yards. Alright guys, so this is the first setup for the year. I already have some back history with this deer. I don't know if this deer made it or not. If he didn't, the good part about this is this area gets used often by all the newer rubs, the old rubs, both exits and the entrances to it have new and old rubs to it. So the staging area has plenty of old and new rubs into it. This hill, I've been hunting it for 3 years now. It always has a decent buck running around on it. pretty much throughout these 3 years, I've kind of narrowed it right down to this section of this piece of public. It is aggressive. I don't know what Bob or Jimmy and anybody else who's hunting around here is doing. I'm just going by hunches from what I've seen, what little hunter sign I have seen. Most of them are just coming right by this. They're heading back to those oaks, or they're some big open hardwoods just to the left. So this area, like I said, it is aggressive. I still have to wait for the proper wind, but it's really either I'm going to kill him or I'm going to get busted. That's all it comes down to it. He's not moving far. That's probably about 50 yards before he even got pitch black from my sit over here. If he does decide to take the route over onto the private, my position, I should have another crack at him, and hopefully that second time, hopefully it's not a second time, hopefully that second time he'll slip up and I'll be able to put a good shot placement on him, or a good shot on him. So it's literally coming down to, he has about 30 yards, then he's lying off. He's either going right, left, or he's going straight up through. Where my tree is, I can get to 2 of those shots, 32 yards. If he comes down the trail towards me, it'll be right underneath the tree, a 10-yard shot maybe, if that. So once again, this is the first setup. Sorry if I talk fast. I'm just trying not to bore you guys. I am filming with the phone. Next couple weeks, probably hopefully not more than 2 more of these with the phone before my camera finally arrives. So hopefully we'll be able to get a little better footage. Hopefully I can learn how to talk better. And yeah, I think that basically about covers it. So yeah, time to go.